Hi, my friends. Today I want to present you a new story. Enjoy watching it.
I arrived 15 minutes early, the way I always did for family events. Dutiful, hopeful, and just naive enough to think this time would be different. The ballroom shimmered with soft chandeliers and white roses laced around crystal vases. The kind of elegance my parents adored. Grand, tasteful, expensive. It was their 30th wedding anniversary after all. 3 decades of love, as the invitation had gushed in golden cursive. I smoothed the folds of my pale blue dress, took a breath, and stepped through the marble-floored entrance. A hostess in black and white approached me with a clipboard. "Name, please?" she asked. "Daphne Morrow." She glanced down, nodded faintly. "Ah, yes. You're in the hallway." I blinked. "Excuse me?" She gestured politely. "We had to extend the seating. Yours is just outside these doors." She led me through the main hall, a sea of round tables filled with aunts, cousins, and familiar laughter, to a small table wedged in the hallway between the coat rack and the kitchen door. The smell of garlic and detergent hung thick in the air. I stood frozen, one place setting, one chair, a flickering overhead bulb. I forced a breath and turned on my heel, storming back through the main doors. I spotted Billy near the dessert table, laughing too loudly, plate already loaded with cake. "Billy," I said, trying to keep my voice low. "They put me in the hallway." He turned, gave me a quick up and down glance, and smirked. "Seriously, you're making a fuss about a chair?" "It's not just a chair. It's outside the room, next to the kitchen." "God, you're so sensitive," he said, chuckling. "It's not like they asked you to sit in the parking lot." I stared at him. "You really don't see anything wrong with this?" He shrugged, stuffing a piece of cake in his mouth. "Relax. Be grateful you're even here." Grateful. That word stung like spit in the face. I spotted my mother across the room, elegant in gold, holding a champagne flute like royalty. I moved toward her, heat rising behind my eyes. "Mom," I said firmly. "They sat me in the hallway." She turned to me with a mild smile, not missing a beat. "Oh yes." The main tables filled up quickly. "You couldn't save me a seat. You should have RSVP'd earlier." I RSVP'd the day after the invitation came out. She sipped her drink, unmoved. "Daphne, must everything always be a drama with you?" I swallowed hard. "It's not drama. It's basic respect." "You're not 12, she said, lowering her glass. "If you want to sulk, do it somewhere else." The floor tilted beneath me. I stepped back like I'd been slapped, but she had already turned to greet someone else. And I stood there, a stranger in the house I grew up in. I found myself back at the hallway table, hands clenched in my lap, the clink of cutlery and laughter bleeding through the open doors like a reminder, you don't belong here. Through the doorway, I saw Billy raising a toast beside my father. My mother beamed like the Queen of Denmark, eyes fixed on her darling boy. He hadn't worked in 3 years, still lived in their guest house, and couldn't tell the difference between a Roth IRA and a toaster. But he was hers, her golden child. I stood and walked back in, barely able to hear myself think over the violinist's background melody. Billy caught sight of me again and sighed exaggeratedly. "You're back? Didn't you get enough drama for one night?" "I need to talk to Mom," I said, jaw tight. He raised an eyebrow. "About what?" "That tragic chair outside. I want to understand why I'm always the outsider." Billy leaned in, smirking. "Because you tried too hard, Daphne. Always have. You think being successful makes you part of the family?" I stared at him, my voice trembling. "I started my own company. I make more money in a month than you have in 3 years. And still so desperate to be loved," he cut in coldly. That did it. I turned sharply toward my mother, who was now sipping champagne like she hadn't heard a thing. "Why is it always Billy? Why am I the one forgotten?" She finally looked at me, smiled, tilted her head slightly. "Because he's easy to love. You always made everything so hard." For a moment, everything inside me stopped. I slipped into my parents' study while the speeches echoed faintly from the ballroom. My plan had been simple: leave the key to their dream villa inside a gift box on the desk, a ribboned promise of gratitude. But something tugged me toward the computer. Maybe I needed one small reminder that I mattered, that I had ever belonged. I opened the photo archive labeled family. Page after page appeared. Billy on Christmas mornings, Billy holding trophies he barely earned, Billy blowing out birthday candles year after year. No Daphne. Not even once. I stared at the screen, a sour burn rising in my chest. I backed out of the study, the small velvet box still in my purse. In the banquet hall, I walked past the laughing guests. I stopped in the center of the room, art thudding. I wanted to give something special tonight. I began, voice shaking but loud enough to silence forks mid-air. A house. A home by the lake, with a garden Mom always dreamed of. But something stopped me. My mother narrowed her eyes. "What now, Daphne?" she asked, not moving from her seat. I pulled the key from my purse and held it up. "This was for you." But then I saw the photo albums. I turned to the guests. 30 years of memories. I'm in none of them. My mother smirked, lifting her champagne. "That's because losers don't get framed here. That's your place, outside the frame. And in the hallway." I stared at her for a moment, then said, "You're a fake mom and you and father are not worthy of that country house by the lake. Enjoy your party. The gift is canceled." And with those words I headed for the exit and slammed the door loudly after me. The cafe buzzed with low chatter and the clink of cups, but to me, everything was muffled, like I was underwater. I sat by the window, staring blankly at the untouched latte in front of me. When my fiancé Bradley slid into the seat across from me, his usual grin faded instantly. "You okay?" he asked, scanning my face. "I gave them everything," I murmured. "Planned that house for 6 months, and still they stuck me at the hallway table like some outsider." Bradley leaned in. "They did what?" I glanced out the window, watching a couple pass by, hand in hand, laughing like life had never wronged them. You know what's wild? I thought maybe, this would be the year Mom hugged me first, or that Dad would toast to me for once. But no, Billy got 3 speeches. I got a draft. He reached across the table, his hand covering mine. "They don't see you, Daph. They never have. And honestly, that's their loss." I laughed, brittle and cold. And then Mom called me a loser. Said that's why I don't deserve to be in family pictures. I shook my head. Meanwhile, Billy hasn't worked in 3 years. Lives off them like a king. But I, who built a firm from scratch, who makes more in a month than they see in half a year, get mocked. There was a beat of silence. Then I said, quietly, the house key was in my purse. "Brad, gift wrapped." I was going to hand it to them with a bow and a speech, thank them for everything they never actually did. And she said I was pathetic. Bradley's jaw clenched. "You've outgrown them, Daph. You're not their doormat anymore." I nodded slowly, as if something long buried was rising to the surface. I used to think if I just worked harder, proved myself more, they'd finally love me like they do Billy. But I could build them a palace on Mars and still get seated in the hallway. I pulled out my phone, hand steady now. With a few taps, I typed, "I'm done. Don't call. Don't visit. Don't exist in my life anymore." I hit send. Then I blocked them all. Bradley raised his cup to "Finally living for yourself." I clinked my glass against his. For the first time in years, my chest felt light. I woke up to silence, not the kind that hurts, but the kind that frees. No unread messages. No guilt-laced voicemails. Just sunlight slipping through the curtains and a quiet certainty that I owed no one anything. I brewed coffee, slower than usual. I didn't rush. For once, I wasn't trying to please anyone. The world outside continued its noise, but mine was paused. As I scrolled through photos of my firm's latest project, a penthouse that now graced the cover of Interior Luxe, a message request blinked on my screen. "Blocked number trying to reach you." I deleted it without reading. Later, while arranging fresh lilies in a vase, my phone buzzed again. "Bradley, you still standing?" he teased. "Standing?" "I'm floating," I said, smiling as I tucked a bloom into place. "I think I'm finally, on my own side." He chuckled. "Then I'd say this is your real birthday." After the call, I walked through my apartment, the one I paid for, designed, lived in. I paused by the wrapped gift box sitting untouched on the table, the house key I had once planned to give them. "Bradley, now we have a country house by the lake. We'll vacation there ourselves." I said laughingly. I was no one's disappointment anymore. I was simply Daphne, and that was enough.
Friends, what do you think of this story? Write your opinion in the comments. Would you like more stories? Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell button so you don't miss any videos. See you tomorrow.